after you received the Holy Ghost and as you developed into your teenage years, did you ever walk away from God? Did you stay in the church? How did that work?
So and I have been told that many times, and it's not like a puff up thing or rose on my thing. The uncle I was just telling you about.
Yeah.
I've had many people tell me that, hey, like, you look at, when you get a full map of my life's history, just as it played out, nothing to do with anything great about me, just as it played out, statistically speaking, you ought to be drugged up, messed up, all kinds of stuff, right? And from my perspective, I'm thankful to God, and I'm thankful to the Lord that, from my perspective, it's just like, I don't see how, because the Lord put something in me that I've not always been perfect. I've definitely not been perfect.
Sure.
I've definitely had some things to grow in and have to grow from, but I've always loved the truth. I've always loved the oneness. I've always loved what we believe in. And to go to the point of, have I ever backslidden? Have I sat on the pew and been absolutely backslidden in my heart at times? Yes. There are seasons in life I can go, I was not giving it my all there.
Right.
But I've never walked away from it and said, you know what? Don't want to go to church. Don't want to do with this. Even when I was just showing up. And I'm not saying that was always great, but at least I showed up.
Yeah.
And I may not have been where I need to be praying, fasting, whatever.
Right.
But this is all I knew. And at some point I realized this is all I really want to know.
Yeah. Well, you took, I guess I could see where every man has a choice.
Yeah.
Even at an early age, every teenager has a choice. And you could have gotten bitter and allow that to affect you, but instead, you let it push you in deeper into truth, deeper into the church, deeper into that relationship with God.
Something about it. I remember going to one of my favorite things to do growing up was I'd go to my grandfather's office. He was the pastor at Brandon at that time. I'd go into his office, and of course he had books all back there. And I would just look through his library.
Yeah.
And I'd find books on Brother Bernard. I found, his stuff, and just fell in love with the history of the church, history of our doctrine, history of the truth. And just kind of, I was a nerd in many ways, but I was also a nerd in just church.
Yeah.
I loved all this stuff. I wanted to get as much out. I'm not always good about finishing the book, but I love getting involved in it. And I love to just get into it. And then many times, I just go sit in his office. Before church, he'd be preparing his notes.
Right.
I'd be sitting in a chair similar to this and just sitting there, sometimes talking, sometimes not. Sometimes we'd just be chit-chatting about what he's going to preach, or I might be reading a book and ask a question.
Yeah.
And it was just little constant drips that just, is all I wanted to know.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome, because you do hear of stories like that, but a lot of times when you get the history of a broken home or things like that, a lot of times when you get the testimony, it's that
I've come back
out of that, but you have the testimony that you just never.
I never wanted to leave.
You never wanted to leave it.
There were times. There was one particular time I can think of in late high school, early college, when you're first getting hit with the college classes, and you're dealing with evolution. And you're like, what is this? But just outside of a little bump here and there, honestly, just this is it.
I guess you could say that it became your safe haven.
It is.
Instead of.
And it's hard to deny the experience when you've seen enough and you've felt enough. It's like you can't. To me, from my perspective, maybe someone can, like we've talked earlier.
Yeah.
These smart guys and want to use logic and reason and whatnot. But to me, I'm like, there's too much evidence that I've experienced and seen for myself. I'm too far gone.
Yeah.
I can't go back.
You're too deep into it.
Yeah, I can't go back.